are students of Ghana Christian International High School, and we urge you all to subscribe to HisGov TV. Thank you.
Hello there. You are welcome to HisGov TV. Before we begin with today's lessons, I would like to remind you to please subscribe to the channel. Click or tap on the subscribe button under this video, the red button there before you leave. This is the only channel or platform where you get access to CRS SHS contents, government SHS contents, as well as history SHS content or lessons based on the West African Senior Certificate Examination, that is the WASI, syllabus. Beyond that, we also look at trending historical issues. We go back to analyze the events which brought whatever is happening at the present, and we also go to visit some historical sites as time moves on. So we have a well packaged content for you. So please do us the honor to support us by subscribing to our channel. Fantastic. So in our previous lesson, today we are still looking at the Fante Confederation. I thought I could finish the Fante Confederation in the previous video, but I couldn't, and so I had to divide it into two and do it in separate videos. So if you did not watch the video on our last lesson, that is the achievement of the Fante Confederation, I would include the link in the description. Please kindly tap on the RPK, the relevant previous knowledge, under the description over there, and then watch the achievements of the Fante Confederation before you come and watch today's lessons. So today is the last day for us on this Fante Confederation issue. We are going to look at the reasons for the failure of the Fante Confederation. Okay, the reasons for the failure of the Fante Confederation. This is going to be our last subtopic on the Fante Confederation. So in our last video lesson, we looked at the achievements of the Fante Confederation, and it was an interesting discussion. We said that the Fante Confederation achieved a lot, and if you watched of that video, you can try and recall some of the achievement of the Fante Confederation. So one of them we remember was the creation of a standing army, or a national army, which we said were about 50,000 troops, and they fought some wars in the commander area, as well as Ahanta and Disco. We also said that they were able to draft some constitution, some 3 constitutions known as the Mankesim Constitution, and then we said other achievements. So go in there and watch that video, because that's what we're going to build on for this lesson today. So today we are looking at the reasons for the failure. 1 or 2 reasons accounted for the failure of this wonderful state, which if had survived, I think that it would have changed the historical narratives of the Gold Coast, or even today as we call ourselves Ghana, because I'm sure that if this confederacy had survived and posed threat to the Asante nation or empire or Asante Confederacy, I am sure that they would have also mended their ways to suit that of the ways of these confederations. So I'm sure that the Asantes would have also adopted the Asante already had an army, but the constitution and others would have been adopted by the Asante Empire. And believe me, we would have had 2 different states or countries altogether. Things would have changed, but that did not happen. Unfortunately, the Confederation had to fail and collapse because of 1 or 2 reasons, and so that is what we are going to look at today. So our lesson objectives is quite simple. Should be able to outline some of the reasons for the failure of the Fante Confederation. All right, so let's go in there and look at the why the Confederation failed. All right, good. So the first reason why the Confederation failed was that the Confederation had a weak army. A weak army. So you recall in our previous lesson, we said that one of the achievements of the Confederation was that it was able to form an army of 15,000 soldiers or troops. But that 15,000 men, comparatively, was small. Okay, looking at the demand that was made on these 15,000 men. Don't forget that these 15,000 men were supposed to protect the non-Fante states, the Akan states, the Dentra, the Wassa, the Asin, who were part of the Fante Confederation. They had to be, troops had to be sent to those areas to protect them against the Asante invasion. All right. More so, don't forget that this army, this same 15,000 army, was supposed to fight on behalf of the people of Commander as well as Disco, and then also to even capture Elmina from the Dutch. And 15,000 comparatively was too small for that job. And so the Fante states, the Akan states, the Dentra and Co, who were part of the Confederation, had to withdraw at a point in time because they felt that the Confederation was not willing to protect them. Even though this weak army made some success by helping the people of Commander, doing away with the Dutch. However, Amfo too, who was then the military commander of the army, the king of Abra, after they successfully drove away the Dutch from Commander, they tried to also attack Elmina, because Elmina was, we already know now the role that Elmina played. Elmina was the center for the Dutch administration, and also Elmina was for the Asante army, and that was where Asante was getting a lot of the firearms from. So they trying to capture Elmina was unsuccessful. Was not successful because of the weak army that they had. So they failed in capturing Elmina. Okay, again, the army failed to reduce the Asante threat to its minimum. So you also recall that one of the reasons for the formation of the Confederation was to rival the Asante Confederation, which had already been in existence. But looking at the size of the Asante Confederation and the sheer number of troops that they would have as compared to, these Fante states, small Fante states, you can say that the army of the Asante Confederation would be much more bigger than that of the Fante Confederation. And don't forget, in those days too, it was not the number of the sophisticated weapons that you had at this point. It was the number of troops that you had, and that was the reason why among the Asante people they said that ukum apema apimbeba, which means that if you kill thousands, kum means kill, apim means thousands. So if you kill thousands of Asante soldiers, another 1,000 would come, because there were many, and that was the strength of an army at this point in time. So because of that weak army, they couldn't achieve some of the things that they wanted to achieve for the Confederation to survive. For instance, neutralizing the threat of the Asante army and also attacking Elmina or recapturing Elmina and adding it back to the Confederation, and also protecting the non-Fante states like the Dentra, Asin, and the Wassa, who were part of the Confederation. Good. Let's take a look at the next one. The next one was the lack of funds. The lack of funds. The Confederation needed money. Every state will need money to run its economy. And Ghana, every time we are going back to IMF, to World Bank, to go and look for money or borrow money to come and run the country. And so every state need money to run its affairs. So what happened was that this confederation, they actually implemented tax system whereby the people were paying tax. Okay, so they collected tax and collected other things so that they could raise revenue for the implementation of its development programs. Don't forget that they had stated in their constitution that they were focusing on road construction as well as education, health, and other sectors, and so they will need money to do all of that. But the taxes that they imposed were not enough for 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 the kind of work that they wanted to do. And interestingly, the British also prevented them from taxing the wealthiest companies which were operating along in their area, in their domain. And so the Confederation ran into debt, in which by 1870 was amounted to like 2,000 ounces of gold, which was equal to 7,200 euros. And so they taxed the revenue that they were able to mobilize from the tax was not enough. And so they ran into debt. And that's the more reason why in Ghana we go forward twice and we come back, because always our revenue mobilization as a country is very, very, very low. So the government is not able to get the enough fund to support its policies. And so very often, even sometimes, our budgets are funded by international donors, and then we are always in debt, and so that is what happened to the Confederation. And so it had to collapse, like the way the Ghanaian economy is collapsing now. At this time, they did not have the IMF to come in to help them. Had it not been that, I'm sure they would have been able to stand on their feet. Had the IMF been in place at that time, they would have gone to the IMF to seek for support. But since the IMF had not been formed at that time, the Confederation collapsed. So yeah, so Ghana should be grateful to the IMF. Please let me pass. I don't want any trouble. Good. Again, was that there was the British hostilities, okay, against the Confederation. The British, at a point in time, began to feel threatened by the power of the Confederation. They felt that the Confederation was a threat to the British power and jurisdiction in Ghana. So what they did was that they refused to sell gunpowder and also bribed some of the people away from the Confederation. And these people, and also encouraged the non-Fante states not to pay the poll tax, which was introduced by the Confederation. So these were some of the activities that the British did in order to destabilize the Confederacy. So refusing to sell gunpowder to the Confederacy meant that the army was going to be very weak, bribing people away, and bribing the non-Fante state, the Dentra and Co. were all bribed away. And so, again, the British governor at that time, Sir Charles Spencer Salmon, also arrested some of the executives of the Confederation, and then exiled them somewhere in 1871. So some of them were also arrested in 1871, and so that brought the Confederation on its knee. There is this point, I don't know if it is here or I did not add that point, but let me add that point to this one. I don't know why it is not here, but another major reason that led to the collapse of the Fante Confederation, you can write it, was that the nature of the Confederation itself was even bound to fail. Okay, so the nature, so that will be the last point. The nature of the Confederation itself accounted for its fall or its failure. Now, what do I mean by the nature of the Confederation itself? You recall that the Confederation was made up of both Fante and non-Fante states. Some of these Fante states were the Abra, the Gomoa people, the Anmabo people. However, the non-Fante states were the Denchira, the Asun, and Wassa. Now, remember that these non-Fante states joined the Confederation, Fante Confederation, even though they were not Fantes. They joined the Fante Confederation mainly because they wanted to resist being under the Dutch influence when the Sweet River Convention agreement was signed or agreed upon by the British and the Dutch government. You recall that under that agreement, these non-Fante states of Denchira, Asun, and Wassa were all going to be under the Dutch influence per the agreement, including Commander. And so they were fighting alongside with Commander to resist being under the Dutch influence, because the Dutch were the traditional allies or friends of the Asante Confederation. And so that is why these non-Fante states joined. However, after the war with the people, with the Dutch, after the Commander and the Dutch war, and the Dutch, decided to withdraw from the coast. Now the British took all the castles and forts along the coast. So now that the Dutch are gone, they have withdrawn from the Gold Coast and they are no more. And now the British have come back. These non-Fante states of Denchira and Asun and Co. did not see the reason why they should be part of the Confederation. And as we have already indicated here, they were encouraged not to pay what the poll tax that was introduced. The British encouraged them not to pay because now the British are still going to protect them should in case the Asante invade. And so the only reason why these non-Fante states joined the association was because of the fact that they wanted protection from the Asante, and now the British have come back before the Dutch have gone. Now the British have come back, so there was no need for them to be part of the Confederation. So that we are saying reduced the alliance that these non-Fante states had, and some of them had to do away or take themselves away from the Confederation, which finally led to its collapse. Sorry, I did not add it, but I know I have told you. If you don't write it when you are asked, I have told you. So please make sure you add it to your slides. Good. So thank you very much for your time. Subscribe to the channel. Recommend to your friends. If you have any topic that you want us to look at, you can write it in the comment section and we will do that for you. So this is a trial work for WASI. It came in WASI actually 2022, that's 2012. 2012, yes. Identify any 4 reasons leading to the collapse of the Fante Confederation of 1868 to 1873. So we know the Confederation itself, the nature was 1, a weak army was 2, and then the ones that we have talked about, all right, the lack of fund and all of that. Bye-bye for your time. Thank you.